Okay. Good morning, everyone. I can see our speaker of the day. I can speak. I cannot see my partner, another partner, the host, another host. I cannot see. Dr. Priyanka, you have joined. Dr. Priyanka. Waiting for Dr. Priyanka.
I can see her now.
Okay, where is she?
Hello, good morning.
Can't see you.
Good.
Can't see you.
Can't see me?
I can see you. I can see you. I am talking about Dr. Priyanka, who has to host.
Dr. Priyanka, you're muted.
Can you see me?
Waiting. Yes, 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 yes. Okay. So we are good to go, and we have around participants. Around 30 participants have joined, and we have waiting around 5 of them. I admit them all, and so now we have around 40 participants, which will keep on increasing. So before I'll admit all. Admit. Okay. So we are 40 and good to go now, because I think we have 20 waiting during the lecture. I'll add them. I'll keep them waiting for now, as of now. Okay, we have increased now. We are 43. Okay, coming to today's lecture. Research is a reconnaissance party of science, roving the unknown territories ahead independently, yet not without a purpose, seeing for the first time what the following world will follow, few years later. But the science has to be published in an organized, understandable, and repeatable way. And that's what our revered, venerable speaker of the day will talk about. Over to Professor Priyanka to introduce to the speaker.
Thank you, Dr. Aman. And I welcome you all to this.
Please, loud, please.
I welcome you all to this second lecture of our innovative pedagogical teaching. And we are really grateful to all of you for an overwhelming response that you've shown to this venture. At the onset, I would like to thank Dr. Goria for letting us conduct this lecture under the aegis of INPAFO, and Dr. Emilio for his partnership of AFOHR, and Dr. Jasuja and Dr. Neeraj Grover for their support of ISCFI. And it's a tall task to introduce our speaker for the day. She is a great friend, but she's also a great researcher. She has done her MDS from Naya Dental College 11 years back, and in her 11 years of post-graduation, she has increased her research quotient par excellence. She has conducted workshops, she has done lectures, she's also been an examiner to various universities, and she has been the recipient of various prestigious awards, the last of them being the Triple O Award in 2016. I'm sure there's a lot to learn from her, and I will not take too much of your time. And over to Dr. Deepika for her lecture. All the best, Dr. Deepika.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, I'll just share my screen. Just wanted to say good morning to everyone, and thank you to the hosts, my team, Dr. Aman and Dr. Priyanka, for giving me such a warm welcome. Let me just share my screen. 1 minute. Yeah.
Dr. Deepika,
I think louder. So we are ready. Okay, formally again, I was just saying that, in these gloomy times when you open the television and you tend to get depressed, we as a team thought of these lecture series.
Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
And this is the second in our venture of keeping ourselves busy, keeping ourselves updating, and engaging in as long as and thanks to. Can you hear me? Is it clear now? The voice.
I think Deepika is cracked. I'll make her join again.
No, I'm there, but can you hear me?
I can hear you, but you have not shared your screen yet. Yeah, now I. Yes, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah, 1 second. Yes. So I hope everybody can hear me now.
We can hear you. Share your screen. Yes.
Yes. The screen is shared now. Can you see it?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So as I was saying, these are gloomy times. These are not very happy times, but we're trying to keep ourselves happy and engaged by, the constant endeavor of updating our knowledge. So today's lecture series is titled Decoding IMRAD. And I'd like to, at the onset again, from my side, thank the Indo-Pacific Academy of Forensic Odontology, also the AFOHR and the Indian Academy of Craniofacial Identification for supporting this lecture. To introduce myself formally, I am Professor Deepika Bablani Popli. I am working in the Faculty of Dentistry and my specialization is oral and maxillofacial pathology. Now, I'll start my lecture with Sir Francis Darwin's words. In science, the credit goes to the man who convinces the world, not to mind. And BDS one-liner. He said, Deepika, either you publish if you want to survive in the academic world, or you perish. So these words stuck with me. And I continued in my watching, but that was then, in 2004. And now this is 2020. So 16 years have gone by and publishing doesn't mean the same any longer. When it is not just enough to publish, it is essential for every academician to publish regularly and to publish in high impact journals, that is journals of high esteem and repute, not just, the various predators want to accomplish this task of publishing regularly and publishing well in good journals. Well, there is no secret. 1 second, my PPT is hung up. Yeah, a combination of two things. One, you need to do good work, good research in order to attain that platform. And second is to follow a correct format of publishing. So we know how to present your work. The first part about good research is something which I'm not going to talk about. It's beyond my scope. We have such senior faculty here today. They're all very well equipped to deal with that question. And I'm sure all the postgraduates who are here with us today, their guides are very much in a position to help them with the first part. The second part, again, most of you would know. But then just to brush up, there are certain tips and certain pointers which are included in my presentation, which will help you in writing and crystallizing your writing as you do research. So what a good research paper. The paper needs to be smart. So what do we mean by smart? It answered a research question. The paper should not, there is no research question. Define your research question and in your paper to answer that question. Your findings should be measurable. So results, whatever results you can compare them, quantify them, and label. If someone wants your work, your paper itself should be a standard document which he can refer to and repeat your work and strive to get the same results which you got. If it uses the same material and same methods. Realistic. We should have a realistic situation in our paper. We should give our limitations and scope of the paper. And we should follow the time frame. That is, we should stick to the time frame which we started with. So coming to decoding IMRAD. Now what is IMRAD? IMRAD is nothing. It is introduction, materials, results, and discussion. The A is for and. Some authors prefer to use A for analysis. So they say introduction, material methods, results analysis, discussion. Now, IMRAD is, I'm sure you're all familiar with IMRAD. We've all been using in medical science. There is nothing but IMRAD if you have to publish. But publishing started about 300 years ago, like the 3 centuries. Publishing was very descriptive. Of course, it started way before that. Vedas and other scriptures are very old. The scientific literature of publishing from 3 decades was very descriptive. So what do I mean by descriptive? Dialogue based. This was done, and then that was done, and we saw this, and we saw that. There was no structure to the paper. About 1875, when Louis Pasteur was working on the germ theory, he was working on how microbes cause diseases, and he had to defend his work from his competitors who did not believe in it, who believed in the propagation of disease. So in order to defend his work, he wrote a very detailed paper, a very detailed report of his work. And the structure that he followed was still the present day IMRAD. But it still took about, in about 1950, IMRAD started showing up in the big journals in Europe and US, in the English literature. And then by about 1970, along with Bradford and his questions, this was an English epidemiologist, and he gave a couple of questions for actual association. So what were Bradford's questions? They completely were in line with IMRAD, and that is how from the last 50 years, IMRAD came into the picture of scientific literature. So what is IMRAD? Basically a set of questions. Why did you start? What is your research question? The answer is your introduction. What methods did you use, or how did you achieve? How did you try to do your experiment? The answer is material methods. What do you find by your investigation? Your answer is results. And what do these results mean?
Deepika, your voice.
How do you interpret the results? If I go a little slower, is it better?
It is better if you go slow. You're going a little, it's difficult to hear them.
Or okay, I'll go a little slow.
Maybe a fan is there, which is working just overhead on your head.
No, there's no fan. There's no fan. It's probably just the network.
Okay.
Ma'am, now your voice is very clear.
Now it's
ma'am. Now it is very clear, but before it was not audible.
Okay, please go ahead.
I think it's just
go a little slow. Go a little slow.
I'll go slow. I think that will be better when you're.
I want all the mics to be off, please. All the mics to be off.
Right. So as I was saying, Bradford Hill gave a couple of questions. And these questions as to what is it that you want to find out. Your research question tells you the introduction part. how is it that you want to intend to get to or approach this research question is the methods part. What results did you get? What were the findings of your experiment is your results section. And how do you interpret these findings is what is there in the discussion. So we must see a diagram on the left. Now that is the structure of your article. It is wide on top because you're talking about general things in the article. So it's more general. You're talking about what has been done and what is the gap in the knowledge. Basically, work has already been done. Your work that you are going to do is going to be based on previous work. So you will see the previous work, look for knowledge gaps and use that as an opening to put forward your action plan. Your action plan is your methodology to your results and interpretation of the results, and then again a wider quadrangle at the base, which shows you that again towards the end you become more general because you compare or interpret your results with the other findings, with the other articles which are available. So from general to specific in your materials and results to again general in the discussion and conclusion. But IMRAD doesn't give you a full picture in the sense that it excludes certain important topics. Now, which are those topics? The title of your paper, the abstract, acknowledgement, references. These parts are not covered in the traditional IMRAD, but now we tend to look at it in a more comprehensive manner. And we have sort of inculcated these two along with the traditional IMRAD. So I'm going to now go on to the main part of my paper and discuss each of these subheads and see what we can do. We've been doing this, but if we've been missing anything in what we've been doing, it's like a brush up. To start with the first, which is the title. Now, why is the title important? The title is very, very important because in today's date and time, all your search is through the search engines. Now the search engines pick the titles. So if your keywords or if the gist of your article or the heart of your article is not in the title, then it's going to be missed from the various very well. Now I've given two examples here on the slide of two titles. The first one is very simple, Studies on Candida. The second one is slightly more elaborate. It says on the addition to the method of microscopic research by a new way of producing color contrast between an object and its background or between definite parts of the object itself. Now, which one do you think is better in the two titles? Both not good. The first one is too short. It doesn't give you any information about what type of, where, is it an in vitro study? Is it in the mouth? Is it in the lab? How are you doing? Nothing. The second one on the other hand is too long a title. It's got a lot of unnecessary words which are really not giving you any additional information. So we need to be very clear as to how to choose the correct title. The correct title should neither be too short or too long. The title should be specific to your study. For example, if you're doing an electron microscopic study in which you're trying to see Candida, for example, or some internal structures of Candida, all this information, sorry, all this information should be there in your title. Your title should say your study site, a little bit about your sample, maybe if you're using something new, some new method, even a little bit of the methodology, because you have to put the words by which you want your article to be picked up. But we must remember that while doing this, we have to avoid some common syntax errors. I've put one example from the Journal of Bacteriology. Now, this is an old article. Now, these mistakes happen less often, but just for reference. The article title is Multiple Infections Among Newborns Resulting from Implantation with Staphylococcus aureus 502A. Now, newborns resulting from implantation with Staphylococcus aureus? Since when have Staphylococcus aureus become the new stock and have started resulting in newborns? So this kind of syntax error is really not pardonable in a title. You need to be careful of these mistakes. Again, we have to avoid any extra words. Brevity, it's called brevity. So any words which don't give you a concise and crisp picture and are unnecessary even for indexing. For example, studies on Staphylococcus aureus. Now, why do you have to write studies on? Of course, we're talking about an original research article. You know that is where you're publishing, in that section of original research article. So it is a study, investigations on. It doesn't add, it just adds to title and nothing more than that. Even the preface of your title, the beginning word, and there is really no need for these. The title doesn't need to be a sentence. It is not a sentence in which you need to have a starting word and a subject, an object, a preposition. No, we just have to treat, we'll give you what is there in the package. So it has to be the label of your article. Coming to the next part, once you have conquered the title, the next thing which everybody retrieves or reads about your article is the abstract. Now, abstract in the literal sense means pull out, okay? Your abstract is a standalone document. A lot of search engines, if you have published, nowadays open indexing is very common. But if your article is in a paid journal, a lot of people will not actually go and buy the article to read it. And these days, less and less people are visiting libraries to take out the journal and read articles. So all they will read about your article and decide whether they want to pay for it or make the effort of going down to the library to retrieve that article is by reading the abstract. So the abstract is a very small document. Like I said, it was a mini version of your paper. It contains the background, aim, material method, results, discussion, and conclusion, all in less than 350 words if you're dealing with a thesis, and usually less than 250 words, about 100 to 250 words for a research paper. Abstracts can be structured or unstructured, but nowadays, abstracts also, most journals insist that your abstracts are structured. So the abstract is the first impression of your paper. That is what will pull the readers to either take your paper, read it, or skip it from their reading list. Again, abstract is also not just important for the readers, but also from the editorial point of view. Because even the editors in the initial screening read only the abstract to decide whether your paper is fitting into their journal category. As in, the journal may not be looking or may not be dealing with your research. So the abstract is very important. And just by reading the abstract, the primary step, your article may get rejected. Now, like I said, the abstract is a standalone part of your research because that's the only thing which will pop up in most of the search engines. When you go to PubMed, you only see the abstract and then you click for the full link. Now, the abstract, hence, should not have any references. No citations. This is a very common mistake. Sometimes even we do. I have very recently, I submitted a paper, quickly made it and submitted it to my, the scientific committee in our university. And I got a query saying that, you've got some references in the abstract. And despite knowing the rule, you tend to do this mistake. Literature, don't put any tables that is mentioned, refer table 1, refer table figure 2. All of these references, it's a disconnect. The abstract has to be completely disconnected from the main paper. Nothing is, joining the two. Plus, what I advise is that please don't use abbreviations in the abstract. It's a standalone thing. Let it be use the full forms. You can start using abbreviations once you start your main paper and go to introduction. So when you come across that term, which you're going to frequently use in your paper, in the introduction, you can abbreviate it there. Abstract has to be written in past tense. Now, why do we do that? Because we are going to be talking about tenses for every section of our paper. So just before we go ahead, I've put a small note on the use of tenses. Now, this is again an area where we all do this, but some of us sometimes don't realize why we are using. We're so used to writing the material, the methodology in past tense and the introduction in present tense, but we don't know why. There are only 2 tenses that are normally used in scientific writing. And this is, there are these books by Day in 1998. This is the 5th one of this book of scientific writing. They are excellent resource material. And please, all of you who are interested to read more about scientific writing can go through these books. Now, Day had said that there are only these 2 tenses, past tense and present tense. Past tense is to be used when we are dealing with established knowledge. That is, something that was already published and is proved. So when we are quoting that, we use the present tense, and we use past tense when we are dealing with something that the results are currently being reported. For example, the paper that you're writing, you are still reporting it till the time it is published. It is not in the scientific domain. So whenever you're quoting your own work in your paper, you will be using the past tense. We put these to use, and that is why in your abstract, let's go back again, we are talking about our own paper. Okay, we are discussing the background, aims, material, methodology of our own paper, and hence we use the past tense for the abstract. Now, when we talk about the abstract, what is the weightage of the various components? It's almost like a mini paper. So it's only 100 to 250 words. So how do we break down our abstract? The introduction, that is the background and importance and why you're doing the paper, is about 25%. The method section is again 20%, because this is what you're trying to show. You're trying to showcase your results in the abstract so that people go out, take out your paper and read it. So this is about 35%. And the discussion, you can limit it to just 15%, because people who actually want to read your paper, if they've got interested in your results, will open your paper and then they can read the detailed discussion. So with that, we finish with the abstract and go on to writing our main paper, the main manuscript, in which the first is the introduction. Now, I'll start with, again, a quote. A bad beginning makes a bad ending. So you have to start correct. Your introduction, most people, they have read the results in the abstract. In the paper, they read the introduction, then they read the discussion. They see how you've interpreted the results, because the results tables, many people would actually see. They would read the discussion. And then if it interests them and they want to repeat something similar or they want to compare with their work, then they will read the methodology. So introduction is the first thing that your readers are going to read. Now, introduction is, this is a model which has been followed, creating a research space. John Sway gave it, creating a research space. Now, there are 3 steps or 3 moves for creating a research space. First is, basically this is given from an ecologist's point of view. And it's more like we're in an ecosystem. And so we have to create our territory. and establish our niche area and then occupy that niche area. So the first one is that you explain the situation. Establishing the territory is background, create a background, claim, why is this area of your interest important to the community at large. For example, if I say oral cancer, I will talk about, what are the studies done in oral cancer, why is it important, then current literature relevant to your research. So all the work that has been previously done, you will review previous research, a few papers. It's not like a few, introduction is not like a full review section, but 3 to 4 papers of studies similar to what you are planning to do, to build. You're like building the base for your work. Then establishing a niche. Now, what is establishing a niche? If all the work has been done, why are you doing this study? Okay, so you have to counterclaim. You have to raise problems in the work previously been done. So you have to find gaps in the literature. Now, counterclaiming doesn't mean you will start pointing fingers at others and you will start criticizing others for their work, but you will try to see the limitations of their study, being neutral in your language. Your language should never be very aggressive. As scientists, it doesn't look
Deepika, a little slow. Deepika, a little slow, please.
Good if you point fingers at others. Just be neutral. Sure, sorry, I tend to speed up. Okay, so once we've established our territory, we've reviewed the literature, we try to go to the next step in counterclaiming and finding gaps and targeting the gaps. So we are seeing the previous literature, and like I said, in a neutral tone, we are trying to find the limitations of the previous work, find the gaps in the literature in the previous work that has been done. Then we occupy the niche, or we give solutions, or we give an idea as to how we are going to solve or fill in the gaps which are there in the present literature and in the present scene. So for example, oral cancer, talk about it, talk about the studies which have been done, link about oral cancer being and tobacco being very, it's been done. Then find a gap. In the Indian scenario, most of these studies which have been done abroad. So in the Indian scenario, find a gap that not much work has been done to associate the forms of tobacco we use in India. For example, kheni, pan masala, which are more in Southeast Asia. Now try to, find a gap to, like, work has not been done in this area, and then formulate a hypothesis that you think that the use of only non-smoked tobacco can also cause oral cancer, or is not causing, not responsible for oral cancer. So formulate a hypothesis, provide an outline, and try to give a broader significance as to what will be the implications of your research. So that's how we introduce what is there, what is the gap, and how we are going to fill the gap. So the introduction will be basically 3 to 4 paragraphs. The first paragraph will tell you what's known. The second paragraph will tell you what's unknown. Then in the third paragraph, you will tell about your hypotheses and your experimental approach. And you will end again on a broader sense, telling how your experimental approach is new and important, well, how it is going to help the community at large. So when we write an introduction, we keep in mind 3 to 5 paragraphs, not very exhaustive. The review has to be brief, 3-4 studies. Summarize the previous literature very broadly. Focus on a specific question or hypothesis. So right in the introduction, you have to introduce your research question. Now, again, use of active voice in writing. So when we are writing our introduction, we need to talk in the active voice. What is the difference between active and passive voice? I can say that we would like to work on oral cancer, or we intend to find an association between this and this. Passive would be, an association was to be found by the authors. Okay, so when I'm putting myself first, we, I, he, she, they, this is active voice. So try, in fact, now, not just the introduction, throughout the paper, except a few portions on the methodology, throughout the paper, we have to now, the old timers, earlier researchers, to be very polite, they used to, all the researchers had something, you know, it was,
Yeah.
Is it better now?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay.
Just keep checking about the audibility. Please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Just keep telling me, because there's no way I can check. So, but somebody will have to interject. Yeah. Okay. So, so now, you know, all the latest scientific writing content promotes that you should use, as far as possible, the active voice, because you're sort of taking ownership of your work. I did this, or if it's a set of authors, we did this. So, you know, take ownership, and that even it's more impactful when the readers are reading it. It is more impactful, and active voice is the preferred voice for most parts of your paper now. Again, what tends to be used in introduction? What are we doing? We are talking about the previous work that was being done. We are talking about the studies which have already been published. So, present tense for most parts of the introduction. Results and conclusion. Now, this is something which is a question mark. Now, why do I say that? There are, see, IMRAD, the broad groups of IMRAD are very clear, and all journals follow this pattern. What is not very clear is, this is one of those situations, that what comes in introduction. So different authors, different books, different articles on scientific writing would give you certain variations. And this is one of the variations. Whether results and conclusions should be discussed in the introduction. Traditionally, no. In introduction, you just put your, you know, a small review along with your research question, hypotheses, and how you are, like, a little bit introduce your methodology, how you are trying to tackle this research question. Nothing more than that. You kind of keep the audience in suspense about the results and the conclusion. But the newer articles, they say, particularly the American scientists, say they are more, you know, open in their approach, and they say, no, your introduction should, that it's not a suspense movie, it's a scientific paper. The introduction should end with results and conclusion as to, you know, 2 lines summarizing what results you got and conclude what you kind of found from this. So you will have to take your call on the results and conclusion being included.
Deepika, I would like to announce something. We are at 40 minutes right now. We are about to complete 40 minutes. We have a lecture. We have a lecture code given, another one. If this, if Zoom logs out me, we are going to be logging in at another ID which is given to you. Maybe 20 seconds down the line, if I am logged out, you can continue. If we are logged out, we log in through another ID which is given. There are 2 IDs given to you for lecture as well as discussion. So we move to the discussion part of the ID, right? Thank you.
Yes.
Continue.
Yeah, thank you. Now just, you know, you will see these white tables which I've put. We had, in fact, Dr. Priyanka and Dr. Aman have worked very extensively on this. So they, you know, as a team, we had made this, more of them, less of me, the manuscript quality checklist. Now, what was this? This is just a checklist which has questions, and you have to, like, kind of tick through your article. Once you've written a research paper, you run it through this quality checklist for every part, for every section. Like, these are the questions for introduction. We follow this checklist and we see if we have got these points. If we've got these points, then that means we are on the right track. So for introduction, we have to see the format. Is it general to specific? Is the research problem being explained? Are at least 3 studies of previous work relevant, quoted in your introduction? Is there a gap in the literature which has been explained? are the aims and objectives of your study put in the introduction? And what was your study hypothesis? So this checklist will give you, if you have missed out on any of the important points for introduction. Next, we go on to the material and methods. Now, what materials did you use and what methods did you follow in your study? As simple as that. We have the study design. We discuss about a study design as to, we did a study, it was cross-sectional, longitudinal, it was a case control, cohort, observation, randomized. So what kind of study you did? What were your study materials? What was the procedure that you applied? And how were the effects measured? How did you measure or take out the results? So the content for the material methods should be very specific, clear, and reproducible. The word that I want to highlight here is reproducible. Your material methods should be written in such detail and such clarity that anybody reading the material methods should be able to simulate the same experiment in his or her own lab. Now, which tense? No points for guessing. Past tense, because we are discussing our own work. It's not published yet. It's not in public domain yet. We are talking about what we did. So we are using the past tense. We will usually follow the chronological sequence. We did this first, followed by this, followed by this. And this chronological sequence can be shown in the form of a table or a flow chart or a flow diagram. And in the material methodology, after telling how we planned our research, we should include certain key points. For example, what was the sample size? What was the sample population? How did you calculate the sample size? What was the age of your population? It's very important. Some studies use, age groups, blurred age groups, or very large age groups, 6 months to 60 years. Now, why have you taken, your methodology should tell why a particular age group was chosen for the research. Vague, long age groups, not warranted. Plus your age groups, coming back to the title, I just missed one point. The title also sometimes should, if you're using a specific age group, for example, you're doing a study in adolescents or in infants or in the geriatric, your study title should also give that age group. It makes the title more specific. Then there's a point of informed consent and ethical clearance, which has to be mentioned in material methods. Now, this is becoming more and more important. Most reputed journals are asking for ethical clearance number from your institutional ethical committee. Plus, informed consent, whether it was taken or not taken, has to be mentioned. If you're dealing with children, then the informed consent has to be from the parents. If you're dealing with adolescents, 12 to 18 years, then ICMR says that you need a parent consent form. And in addition, because a 12-year-old child or a 15-year-old child is almost a mini adult. Adolescents, they have a mind of their own. So adolescents should have a assent form in addition to the parent consent form. The assent form has to be signed by the child himself or herself, saying that, they have understood and they are willing to participate in your study. So these are certain ethical points which you need to keep in mind when you're writing your methodology: informed consent and clearance. Then when we give the details, like I said, it has to be reproducible. So you have to give all your details: what machine, what make, what materials, what was the composition, but try to not include brand names. Try to keep your detailing generic, because we're in a research paper. You don't want any conflicts of interest. You're not promoting any particular company. The company should not be, you should not have any financial gains for, promotion of any company. So try to keep it generic. Standardization of process and equipment, your processes, equipment, everything should be standardized. And statistics, why you use certain statistics to study your data all of that has to be explained in the material methodology section, not in the results. A lot of people tend to discuss statistics in the results, which is not correct. It has to be in the methods section. So if we have to tighten our methods section, what do? First is, you must preserve your your records. Whatever you're doing, record it and preserve it. You use your passive voice for describing what you did. Active voice in what the instruments and equipment did. For example, when I say what I did, the samples were weighed, and what I weighed the samples. Okay, passive voice, not one. So this is the only section of your research paper in which you are actually using the passive voice. Otherwise, active voice is preferred. Now here again, some Americans don't want to use passive voice here either. I mean, I don't mean to say some Americans. What I mean to say is that a lot of scientific literature, particularly from the US, they propagate active voice, and they say that is the way forward. Now, the hard tissue microtome provides undecalcified sections of...
Just a moment. Deepika, just a moment.
Yeah, yeah.
I see somebody scribbling on the screen. I will have to really tell him to leave, or I will have to stop in between. Please do not scribble on the screen. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. So we use the active voice for what the instruments or the equipment did. So the hard tissue microtome provides the undecalcified sections of teeth. Object first, active voice. Use past tense or continuous tense for describing what was done. The root example, the root canal was kept dry while the reamer was being sterilized in a glass bead sterilizer. Don't keep it simple. The root canal was dried with paper points. Use present tense for facts or information that is previously proved. We know this, that we have to use present tense for previously proved information. So table 3 shows material XYZ has, it has a long shelf life. So we know, so present tense. Again, another important point for tightening your method section. If the method that you are using is new or unpublished, you have to give full details of the method. But if it has been previously published and you're just repeating what has already been done, maybe with new materials, your chemicals are different, your reagents are different, but the method is the same. It's a centrifugation technique which has been used. You don't need to explain the whole technique. You can only cite the name and the literature reference. You must reference it though, that I took this method from here. So again, this is our manuscript quality checklist. Was the sampling explained in methodology? Were the inclusion and exclusion criteria clearly stated? This is very important. Why did you include a certain amount, a certain sample, and why did you exclude people from being in your part of your study? Procedure explained in detail and reproducibility, is it possible? Is reference of standard procedures given? Were the equipment used standardized? Was the standardization explained as to how you standardized your microtome or how you standardized your radiographic machine? Were the statistical methods appropriate? Methodology. Why you're using the statistics that you're using? You have to justify it right here. Then once you have conducted your experiment and your methodology is sorted, your major part is done, we come to the results. In results, we show the detailed results of your study in their natural order, as in what you got first, then the next set of experiments, what were the results you got, third set of experiments, what were the results you got, and then you break them down in subsections. You can use text to explain your results, you can use tables or charts. The reporting style for results will be slightly variable depending on what kind of research paper you're trying to write. If you're planning to use it for a library dissertation, it has to be more analytical. You have to explore, restructure, and present from a topic of your perspective. If it is a thesis, you need to defend your thesis. So the style will be more argumentative. You have to take a stand and use evidence from results and statistical analysis to support your stand, leading to justified conclusions. So reporting style can be slightly variable. Now, what we need to remember in results is that even the negative groups are very important. So the negative results give the scientific world, knowledge as to what they are not supposed to do. Negative, that you rule out certain things. So negative groups are important. When you say significant in results, you have to mean statistical significant. Not that it is significant you feel. It has to be substantiated by statistics. The P less than 0.05 has to be there. Again, in the results, use past tense for completed action, completed results. You're talking about your study, it's not been published. So you will say, we found that the average reaction time was, and you will use active voice. We found reaction time was. You will not say, this was found by these authors. No passive voice in results. Rationale for using statistical analysis, not to be written here. We've done that in the methodology section. Results means what you found. You don't start interpreting your results yet. For that, we need to go to the next section, which is the discussion section. Now, in the results, again, this is our quality checklist. What are the last key points that we want to take home or we want to see? We want to check in our article in the results section. Are the key findings presented clearly? Is there a repetition of the text and the tables? That is, what you have said in the text, are the tables saying the same thing? Please don't repeat. We have to save space. All the journals now have a very limited space available, and there are a lot of, they want to include as many publications as possible. So don't repeat text and tables. Are the results relevant? Are significant and non-significant results both mentioned? Or have you had a bias and only mentioned the significant results in your results section, which is not correct. In science, you have to report what you found and what you did not find. You hoped to find, but you did not find. What were the tables and figures? Were the tables and figures easy to comprehend and were they professional? So when we are doing, just a slight point about the figures and tables, what we do, whenever you use figures, you have to remember that you must give a legend for the figure. Any figure without a legend is meaningless. Unless you write in the legend, which is usually mentioned below the figure, the legend should give you the title, the experimental details, the explanation of the panel, statistical information, and arrows. All of this has to come in the legends. Just for an example, this is one of our papers which we published. Now we had given this figure. Sorry, it's a little blurred somehow. There are two main things which a legend should include. The legend is incomplete. The first is the title. So distribution of percentage of correct matches for each examiner. So this is what the table is, this figure is telling you. And the second is the message, which explains the content of the figure. So you have the median indicated, it's a long message, and in the end we have summarized within the legend of the figure that the median of all examiners was 90%. So we got a good percentage, a median percentage for all the examiners which assessed our data. Okay, so the legend should be complete, and that gives you, otherwise if you just see this figure, examiner is equal to N30 and correct matches on the x-axis, there is no meaning to it without the legend. Again, apart from tables, figures, you can use graphs and tables. Graphs could be line graphs, bar graphs, or scatter plots. Line graphs will show you a trend over time. So whenever you are taking a group of individuals and studying them over a few months or years, you preferably use the line graph. When you have bar graphs, it's at one point of time and it's more obvious. The results are very clear on your face. You know, you can see these bars going up and down, which kind of throws the results in front of you. Then you have scatter plots. Now these can be used when you have individual data points and you want to show a relationship between two variables. So you can have two series and scatter points for both the series, which will show you. So in short, you're putting all your data in the scatter plot. So it's showing your dirty laundry, but this is useful in some of your data. So according to your data, you choose your graph. Sometimes when the data is too much, you can't use a figure or a graph to give the data. You rather give it as a table. Now this is, for example, one table which we had given. Now we have too many rugae and their pre and post data, the mean, standard deviation, what was the maximum length, what was the minimum length, and the statistical significance. So much of data, if we try to put in a graph or a figure, we would not be able to justify it. The audience will not, the reader will not be able to get any information. So rather use a table. Certain videos or appendixes can be used as add-ons, which you can attach, which will not be visible in the main, but will be there as a supplemental text. Next, we come to our main and very important last point, which is the discussion. Now, in the discussion, we are answering the questions which we had asked in the introduction. This is, again, like I said, a wide base of our diagram, and it is a generalized. Here, from the results which are specific to our study, we are going on to discussing it with the other relevant studies. So we connect our findings to other research in the discussion. We are interpreting what we found in our results. We are discussing our flaws. We are discussing our limitations, the limitations of our study. And based on it, we are even suggesting future research. So implications in the future practices or policies, all of that would come into research. So what your results mean and why should your readers care? This is the gist of your discussion. Summarize your findings, discuss all the major results, provide the big picture. Some authors include the conclusion within the discussion. Others take conclusion as a separate head. So in the discussion, we start with, we found that, our findings. We give context to what were the mechanisms, how, why we got these findings, give the strengths and limitations of our study. We recommend what's next, what needs to be confirmed. We point out the questions and future directions. We say, so what? Give the bigger picture, and then we can end with a strong conclusion or a take-home message. So in the discussion, use the active voice. Tell a story, be more general, discuss, start and end with the main findings. Don't travel too far away from your data. Discussion doesn't mean that you forget. You have to always keep the discussion focused on your work. So your data is being discussed, not worldwide politics. Make sure your take-home message is very clear. In the end, you should be hinting towards the conclusion. Now, in the discussion, the tenses are a little confusing. We go back and forth between past tense and present tense. When we talk about our data, we talk in past tense. We did this, we found this, we implicated this for something. And when we talk about other people's study, that author, then we talk in the present tense, because that is something which has already been done. So XYZ contributes to ABC. For example, smoking contributes to oral cancer. We found, that is present tense because that's already been tested. We found that oral cancer also had a strong association with smokeless tobacco. So that is our data, past tense. So past tense and present tense, it's a mixture in discussion. Continuously, you have to use both the tenses when you're doing your discussion part. In the discussion, we also write, this is our checklist. So we also check for these things. Did we, did our results answer the main research question which we put up in the introduction? Are the author interpretations of the results mentioned? Were the results different or similar to previous studies? You're comparing it. Are the strengths of the study mentioned? Are the weaknesses of the study mentioned? So a SWOT analysis is done in the discussion, strengths and weaknesses. Are the extrapolation of findings within the scope of the data? So this is your checklist for discussion. And either you conclude within the discussion, or most journals ask for a separate conclusion. So in the conclusion, you're actually, sometimes you conclude once in the abstract, you conclude the second time in the introduction, you have to put a concluding remark in the discussion, and then finally you have a conclusion section. So this is the most repetitive section of your paper, because this is your take home. Okay, so that is why this is being repeated almost 4 times through the paper. So in the conclusion, you summarize your research statement and methodology in a single paragraph. That is, the study was carried out to research statement, research question, by using the methodology. Draw valid statistically supported conclusions and list them in the same order as in the title. For example, the mean root length in the age group of 11 to 12 years was found to be this much. So this is your main take home of your study. The compressive strength of the material XYZ was found to be 123 psi. The method X is superior to method Y. So this is what you do in the conclusion. The number of patients showing dash was less in the experimental group. The difference, however, was not statistically significant. So you have to say that, okay, you did get the number of patients being less, but the difference was not statistically significant. You have to conclude that right here. So are your conclusions specific? Final quality checklist. Is the conclusion based on the reported data? Did the author mention the unanswered questions or future research? So limitations, a little bit about limitations could also be put in the conclusion, that, like we said, this group was smaller than the control group, but it was not statistically significant, probably due to, and that was this, and so we propose bigger studies to be done. That's how you conclude. You give an area of future direction, that we did get some positive findings, but they were not confirmatory, and you could confirm by future research. So you mention unanswered questions, limitations, and point towards research. So is there a recipe for success? Yes, for me, there is. State your facts as possible. Even boldly. Use the active voice in most of the paper. Research paper. See, leaders who would be English. So we are very comfortable with the language, but in large parts of the globe, simple to understand and bold to make an impact. The meaning of your paper goes away if you kind of make it very decorative, put a lot of garlands of high-flying words, which will not make sense to the common reader. So to make it impactful, keep it simple, and that is my recipe for success, which I've borrowed from R.B. McCarrow. It's not my original quote, but I really liked it, so I've put it here as my recipe of success. So take home, when you're writing the paper, keep it simple, concise, clarity of thought, and brevity. Brevity is no excess words, no word which doesn't have a crisp and clear meaning. Don't use it. Structured paper, follow IMRAD. You will see no tenses in through action. Affirmative sentences in active voices. Take ownership. I did this. We did this. We thought. Avoid cliches. Avoid double negatives. There ain't any role for no doers. You know, 2 negative words in one sentence. Avoid lengthy jargons and grammatically incorrect language. If you feel your English is not very strong, always, it's a recommendation once you've written the paper, run it through a peer, run it through a colleague who is stronger at it, or use softwares which are available very freely on the internet, which help you with the grammatical part and the language formation, sentence formation. So what is the journey of a publication? Very briefly, we collect some data. We prepare our manuscript on the basis of the data that we have, the thought, the idea that we had. The co-authors review what you've written and rewrite it. You submit it to a journal and the journal rejects it because it's probably beyond the scope of the journal. They don't take these kind of articles. Never mind, revise your manuscript and resubmit it. That is one part. The other part is that you submit it and it goes into a peer review process. The editor clears it and sends it for peer review. You get the reviewer's report on the editor's decision. Either it gets accepted, great, thumbs up. It gets rejected, never mind, rewrite it, take the reviewer's comments seriously and resubmit it elsewhere. You get some revisions, and once you get the revisions, this is the third situation. See, the editors, after the peer review, it's either accepted, clean sheet, no changes required. Rare, but happens. Second, it gets rejected. Not much you can do. You can contest it, but not much point. Take the suggestions and submit elsewhere. Third is that it gets, they give you that it has been accepted, but you have to modify. So take the reviewer's suggestions and modify your paper, and then it will get accepted and we get a publication. So when we are revising our manuscript, I have seen a lot of my colleagues get disheartened. This process can be very, very painstaking. Every author feels that what I have written is definitely correct. I have done this work. I have put in my heart and soul in it. How can somebody criticize that reviewer doesn't even know? As we grow up, we get more and more egoistic and we feel the reviewer doesn't know anything about what I'm working about and has given such comments. It shows he doesn't have any knowledge. No, that is not how we deal with revision of manuscripts. Revising or revisions, peer review processes aimed at reviewing paper quality and meeting the journal requirements. Maybe what you have written is right for you, but it is not meeting the journal requirements. So take it positively, take it constructively, take it as a self-learning opportunity. Dissociate yourself. If you're very hurt at the reviewer's comments, close your laptop, leave it, go sleep over it, give it a day or two, cool off, go back, then do it. Don't get emotional when you're revising your manuscripts. Just dissociate yourself. Think you're doing it for your PG student and you do it like that. That this is some student's work which needs corrections and you have to do it. Consider the reviewer as a consultant rather than as an opponent. Don't think he has no knowledge. Take it as a second opinion, third opinion, fourth opinion, which you're getting for your work. And it's only different viewpoints. Readers will have different viewpoints. So inculcate it in your research. If you disagree, if despite all this, you strongly disagree with the reviewer, disagree, but don't be disagreeable. Don't use wrong language in replying back to the reviewer. Say politely, curtly, neutrally, give your explanation as to why what the reviewer is saying to change will change the meaning of your work and why you do not want to change it. And most reviewers understand. So disagree, but don't be disagreeable. Some people use very harsh language. What do you know? This is my work. That kind of language is not acceptable. So while revising, be polite. Make clear changes. Whatever changes you're doing, now that you're doing changes, you're revising a manuscript, make them clearly and submit a separate document with the list of all the changes that you have made. So submit that along with your revised manuscript. I think if we do this, we'll be able to do a good revision. One of, Dr. Aman's publications is a nice read. It says Gatekeepers of the Academic World, a recipe for a good peer review. So in addition to what I've told you, you can go through this article and it should be helpful. Now, I will end this lengthy discussion by saying just follow the process. Writing a paper, your brain needs to go when you're thinking of your research and you're doing the research, planning your methodology. Writing the paper is kind of step by step, IMRAD. Follow the process and success will be yours. I would like to, in the end, thank my team. Thank you very much, Dr. Aman and Dr. Priyanka. They have both been very instrumental in our journey. We have done can you hear me? Yeah. So, they've both been very instrumental. I would also like to thank the Indo-Pacific Academy of Forensic Odontology, particularly Professor Jasuja and Dr. Goria. They have also always supported us in our ventures, and this series of lectures is being done under the AGs. And also Professor Emilio, the Indian Association of Craniofacial Identification. So, we all have had a long association and we're all helping each other grow. So thank you all a lot. These are my references. And I want to thank everybody who's kind of, stayed with us all this while for joining us. My email ID and phone number are on the screen, and anybody, any doubts, any discussions, we'll try to do some here, and, after that, we can continue later. It doesn't have to end here. This, learning is a continuous process, and we're all available. We all like to learn and like to grow. Thank you. I'll stop sharing.
Yes, please. Yeah. Dr. Priyanka, you need to take over from here for the discussion part. You have some people who have written to you. So please take over I think there are a couple of people who have written to you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but you keep your screen a little down so that now it's fine.
Now it's okay?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Well, Dr. Deepika, thank you so much for a wonderful lecture. And I don't think you've left any stone unturned to make us understand in detail about all the process. I'm sure everybody who's here, actually, to be very honest, the group chat, if you can see, even before you stopped, you went to your last slide, Dr. Deepika, everybody is complimenting you for a wonderful, wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
And thank you so much. But there has been a few queries also that you've been able to ignite in their minds, which is very good. And one of the queries, Dr. Abraham, I invite you to ask your queries, or should I speak them out?
I think I'll have to search her.
Dr. Abraham.
Meanwhile, you can ask. I will be putting him on.
Okay, so the first query, Dr. Abraham has put forward two queries. Is it necessary to get ethical clearance before doing any KP study or survey? Or informed verbal consent is okay? Dr. Deepika?
Yeah. Can you just repeat? Is it necessary ethical clearance before any?
For a survey. Or is a verbal informed consent, informed okay?
No. Well, I'm part of the ethical committee of my university. So this is kind of my forte. No. An informed verbal consent has no meaning unless it is penned down and unless it is signed by the, the consenting, the person you're sampling. Even if it is a questionnaire, even if it is a verbal observational study, any information, even if it is an interview, you're just talking to the patient and you're taking some findings and using those findings, you need a consent. The consent, yes, sometimes if we are dealing with patients and they come to us in the OPD and we've taken a consent on the OPD card, that may more or less cover it. But you need an ethical clearance and you need some form of written consent in which the patient signs to what you say. Maybe a digital consent. If it is a long distance virtual, it's a study in which you're mailing the questionnaire, maybe a digital signature, but you need a consent.
Priyanka, we proceed with the next question, please. Sanmeet Singh, somebody has, I think.
Yeah, Sunpreet.
Yes.
Now she is asked, how should one cite a device in materials and methods used in their study? With how much detail should one cite them?
No, like I
A
said,
device.
yes, any device that you're using, you have to give details such that it is clear which model, which make you're using, so that if somebody wants to redo the study and wants to reconfirm your results, he should get the same results. If I say a microtome was used, for example, in the lab, and I don't say whether it was an automatic, semi-automatic, which make, you know, it is half information. So yes, detailing is required. What you can skip is maybe the brand name, which, you know, like we say, the branding may not be always mentioned, but that too, a lot of authors do mention in their work. The branding is a little controversial.
I would like to add here, if you are adding a brand name, just keep in mind that you have a disclaimer that you have no financial interest involved, because there might be a litigation against that as well if you're using a brand name and promoting something. Because people earlier in 70s publications have taken place deliberately promoting a brand, just making publication so that you have a scientific impact to it. Dr. Priyanka, next question, please.
Well, there's another question by Dr. Abram, and he says how to go about when the journal office asks you to provide necessary detailed information of instrument equipment. I think it's overlapping. The question is overlapping.
Yeah.
He's also talked about instruments or equipments. So
yeah, more
I think been already answered. So any other question from the participants? How to cite, Dr. Rohan, he has asked how to cite a newspaper article both in text as well as in bibliography. Well, I think about citation.
Yeah, this is Dr. Priyanka's forte.
So actually, there are so many different, we talked about the different reference styles last time when we did the webinar. And if you have to cite a newspaper article also, for every reference style, now they mention it on their site itself, how you have to mention the websites or any kind of online stuff that you take or the newspaper articles. So there's a specific format. There's no standard format for all the reference styles. So I think you need to go through the journal's author's recommendations. You should see that, which style they're following. Dr. Rohan, am I clear? I don't think we have any other question here.
Okay.
Regarding that.
Before we finish, I would like to tell you that we will be, as a tradition of 10 days, we had first on 3rd, that was Dr. Priyanka for plagiarism. Second, we happened on 13th, that is Dr. Deepika with IMRAD. And now, since the ladies' first tradition is over, it will be myself on 10 days ahead. So I'll declare the article, just a moment. Okay, Dr. Priyanka wants to speak. Please.
There are 2 more questions which have come up, Dr. Deepika. One is how to find a perfect journal for publication.
Okay.
Dr. Ankit asked.
Yeah. See, I'll say you have to see the scope of the journal and select. Now that is something very vague. Basically, you see the 3-4 studies which are similar to your study and try to see which type of journals they have published in. That is an easy, that's like the easy way of finding which journals will take studies similar to yours. Look for studies similar to your study. Look for the kind of journals they're working in. And then, if you know that this kind of journals, for example, I will give you one simple example. I had done a case of oral myiasis. I published a case report of oral myiasis. Now, case reports in dental journals are they're not accepted so quickly. Okay. But I wanted to publish in a good PubMed journal and I wanted it to be Scopus indexed. So those were my requirements. So this patient was a geriatric patient and I realized that there were geriatric journals which were taking case reports of such conditions in the elderly. So I looked for a European Journal of Geriatric Medicine and I published my case of oral maggots in that journal. So there are no specific journals. You have to see your area. If it would have been oral myiasis in any other age group, that journal was out. right? I couldn't have published in a geriatric medicine journal. But because of that, I got a better platform. And, you know, it was for the whole medicine community, not just dentists. So good impact factor, good high citations. So that's, you know, it's a tricky thing. But if you just apply your mind a little bit and think around, you know, you will be able to find a good journal in which you can publish.
There's also an online journal finder, I think. Elsewhere in the basic databases,
Yes.
they have their own journal finders. So you can just put your title there and they can suggest journals for you. Online, you can do that also. In addition to what Dr. Deepika has just said.
I need to intervene. I need to intervene.
Dr. Aman, can you take that?
I need to intervene here. I need to intervene. These both the ladies are very passionate. They can continue for a week for this discussion. So I'll have to intervene, and because I have to upload this presentation as well. So I'll close down on this note that we have another one coming up. Today is 13th, so it will be 23rd we'll have, and my topic will be citation marketing. You know, how to promote your own article and not being caught as well. You know, that will be the key word here. So citation marketing, there'll be a balance of ethical issues in marketing and how to increase your research index, your H index, how to go about having an academic footprint. Thank you very much for joining. Over and out.